got this from the Nest. I figured that getting this from the Nest would be healthier than ordering something from Trax, as I had technically already gotten dinner at the Harrison Dining Hall within the Harrison building. The Harrison Dining Hall is on the second floor. The Nest and Trax are on the first floor within the Harrison building. And I went and got dinner. Technically, the meal's called dinner, but I feel that 5:40 p.m. today would be too early for my dinner. I figured it would be a good idea to start drinking kombucha again. It tastes pretty good. I picked the ham and cheddar over the turkey and I think American because the ham and cheddar has 1 more gram of protein. The reason why I got dinner at Harrison around 5:40 p.m. was because me and Dad went to the Red Jug Pub. Around 4 p.m. And so the Red Jug Pub, today was the day I finally got to go there after first seeing it during my freshman year. As I said in the video for it, in between our trip to the Red Jug Pub and Dad bringing me back to Brockport, he made a stop at Wegmans, in which I sat in the car with the radio on and finishing that game, a game of Balloons, Tower Defense 6 that I had started. I believe it was a game of alternate balloon rounds on the resort map. I recently tried to do a 2-tower chimps on the new resort map using the Hero Tower Soda and the Wizard Lord Phoenix. But I messed up on round 63. Accidentally doing the sword charge too early because I thought that one of the stacks of ceramic balloons was heading straight for the exit. And then when I tried to bring up the menu screen, so I could back out and then start again. For some reason, it undid that, and I ended up losing the whole game, because in chimps and in impoppable mode, you only have one life. I was in the car, sweating, finishing that alternate balloon rounds game. With or if I'm remembering correctly, it may have been a standard hard game with soda. But actually, I think it was the alternate balloon rounds game with Oben Greenfoot, the Poplust Druids, and some primary towers. In the end, I knew Dad was in Wegmans for more than 10 minutes because the radio turned off while he was out getting me these Pringles and some other things. I believe he also got me the Splash bottled water. If you're gonna get bottled water, which you probably shouldn't do since it can have a considerable impact on the environment, but at least most water bottles are the kinds of plastic that can easily be recycled. Dad really liked the new that Bane styrofoam drawing I did for him. He said it might be his new favorite. I stayed up until 4 in the morning working on it. And I ended up staying up until 5 in the morning. I woke up sometime around 9:30 in the morning, said hello to my dad in the vein of, "Hey Dad." Then he told me to go back to bed, and I did. Then I woke up around noon. This thing was, it took a bit of time for me to figure out how to ultimately open it. I pushed on the part that holds the hummus a bit, and it came out. I'm currently working on the 99th Dan Hamming, trying to create a new prop for the Stick Babe character for a scene I'm currently working on. Working on the raw Beyond video files. I think I call that maybe either building or developing, but then working, editing in Camtasia might be polishing, or really polishing may be detecting mistakes or inconsistencies and correcting them. I also worked on the 99th Dan Hamming in the hours between waking up and us going to the Red Jug pub. I ended up getting a double shot of tequila and cola. And as it turned out, I didn't quite entirely know it at the time, but I guess I should have known it when Dad struggled to find the menu for the Red Jug pub, and instead found an application process for that place. But the place ended up barely having food. We ended up just having chips and salsa, which ultimately factored into why I immediately went into, as soon as I set my stuff down in my dorm room, I immediately went into the Harrison Dining Hall so I could get some food in me, because you shouldn't drink on an empty stomach. You shouldn't consume alcohol on an empty stomach, because then it absorbs faster. And I personally think that a double tequila is 2 standard drinks, but I hear it's some particularly hard liquor. I got this stuff from the nest around 10:15 p.m. because I filled a bag that was already partially filled with my trash, with even more trash. Then took that bag with me to carry this stuff because I wanted to get this meal. And I cleaned my dorm room up at the same time. The end result provided some breathing room for the only completed styrofoams I have within my dorm room besides this one and this one. Seeing a random OK button and just that with some darkened screen over my city in Elvenar, that kind of spooked me a bit. Like it was about to tell me that I'd been kicked out of my fellowship or something. At some point in the afternoon, I noticed there was some kind of inconsistency that made it look like the buckle, the return end of the buckle of a seatbelt, excuse me, that the return buckle was attached to the glass of a window. Which obviously isn't how it works in real life, so I simply copy and pasted a prop in order to make something more realistic. In regards to the 99th Dan Hamming episode, I'm striving to make it as realistic as possible, even though there's a giantess within the Dan Hamming series. Still, I try to make it as realistic. Again, I try to make it as realistic as possible. As I've been working on the 99th Dan Hamming, I've been listening to YouTube videos. That ended up being about some pretty heavy topics regarding Alzheimer's, schizophrenia, a story of how a car crash resulted in traumatic brain injuries to two people. Those sort of things. But in between that, I've also been repeatedly listening to the Third Warning soundtrack from Lobotomy Corporation. I assume it's a video game. I haven't heard of it, but I've heard a little of it. Again, I just happened to find the soundtrack at some point by searching I believe video game time limit music or something like that. Based on what little I've heard, it might be some kind of parody to the SCP Foundation video game. I believe that SCP Foundation Dan Hamming episode is the most viewed of the series. It's obviously not a high priority right now. The priority is currently chipping away at the backlog I've developed of Dan Hamming episodes over the years. Ideas I came up with, developed at least a little, and then abandoned to work on another idea. That's what I've been trying to chip away at all this time. It's primarily for that reason I tend to call this era of Dan Hamming episodes the Patchwork Era. Obviously, it's not good to go into hiatus between every episode. But in the process, I've also been learning new techniques. Learning how to use the Camtasia video editor. And I've now dabbled into the shortcuts that Vion Studio provides. So that was also a benefit. I now know that 2-tower chimps with sought on the Wizard Lord Phoenix on the resort map is doable. I just have to try again. It was seeing that Bane styrofoam that made Dad once again mention the idea of me doing commissions. He in particular said charging $20 plus shipping and handling to do styrofoam drawings of a character of your choice, as what Dad mentioned. But obviously before I do that, I'm going to have to make some kind of video portfolio in which I show every single styrofoam I've ever made. But that's not exactly going to be easy because there's a few styrofoams. There's a relative few styrofoams that I've given away. But hopefully in those cases, I have a YouTube video of them all. But there's also a few styrofoams, and I mean just a few that don't have an engraving, and that's what I call when typically on the bottom of the styrofoam, but if not on the bottom, then on the back is the next spot that tells me when I finished that styrofoam to the nearest minute, although I tend to add a minute or two in order to include making the engraving into the process of finishing the styrofoam, because technically it is part of making the styrofoam drawing. And my plan is to show the oldest styrofoams first and then gradually move into the more recent ones while playing some music I like with it. If you've actually been following me since 2013 or something like that, then you may remember the first two. Still pretty good music even after all this time. I've also had thoughts of downloading all 50 individual tracks of Everywhere at the End of Time, and then burning each track into a CD, which I think is fine as long as you don't sell the CD. I know I didn't make Everywhere at the End of Time. I'm pretty sure I have very little skill in editing music because I know I haven't practiced that very much. I only really dabbled into it once, really, in order to try and make music for the 98th Dan Hamming episode, which has been on my YouTube channel for more than a year now and is still technically the most recent episode. Because at some point I started work on what is now the 100th episode, but then at some point decided to start work on the 99th episode, thinking I could finish the idea I had in my mind at the time quickly within a relatively short period of time, but then I kept widening the scope, and now it's turned into another rather lengthy project. I have all the research I need for these, but I just don't have the night essence to activate them. And I don't feel like using a Portal Prophet instant unless I have a maximum level for a portal site. And in order to do that, I'm going to have to use a city expansion so I can move this day farm out of the way. So what I've been doing recently is investing my knowledge points into eventually upgrading the Tome of Secrets. Since at this point doing that will cost me relatively little knowledge points.